The best of Money Matters. The Big Story.
Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Hongbin Jeong. It looks like Singapore's population has edged up to 6.11 million, but a closer look at the latest report reveals a complex demographic picture. At the same time, Singaporeans are marrying later, having fewer children, and a larger share of the population is age 65 and above. Now, these trends raise important questions about the future of the workforce, social cohesion, and long-term economic sustainability. So to get a deeper analysis on this, joining me today is Paulin Straughan, who is the director at the Center for Research on Successful Aging. Hi, Paulin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Well, what does this population increase mean in the broader context of Singapore's demographics?
Well, the increase is very marginal, so it's been very stable across the past couple of years, right? And we do see that the increase really comes from one specific group, and that is our non-residents. In terms of citizen growth, there's not much growth there. In terms of PR, we've kept that very stable. So in short, I think we have to look at this holistically, more positively, right? Like we are not shrinking, and that's a big deal for us. Thank you.
Right. Well, then how does a small rise compare to previous years' population trends here in Singapore?
Well, it's a very carefully calibrated number, right? When the number of non-residents, work permit holders we invite into Singapore. The citizen growth, unfortunately, for Singapore is fairly stable in a negative way, right? That we don't expect it to grow any significantly because of our sustained low fertility. So any increase realistically comes from either the PR group or the non-residents group. And the PR group is always been kept, stable and at about 0.5 mil, right? So it is the non-residents group that toggles up or down. And the fact that we are still able to attract guest labor to come to Singapore, I think is something that we should be grateful for.
Right. Well, I mean, as you mentioned, the rise is driven mainly by foreign workers in construction and domestic work, sectors vital to the economy. How significant is their role in Singapore's overall population dynamics?
Well, if you look at the kind of jobs that our guest workers in these categories fill, I think for all of us who appreciate, how things, our construction go, this very construction scene remains very lively and vibrant. We all appreciate our foreign domestic helpers. So in short, they play very important roles, in their respective responsibilities in Singapore. So very important then for us to be mindful of the fact that together collectively, they are a palpable proportion, right, of the non-residents that we host in Singapore year on year. So this means that in terms of integration, we need to start to think of them as part of the Singapore mosaic and dynamics. So, for example, on their off days on Sundays, do we have outlets for them to gather and enjoy and fellowship with each other? Things like these, very important.
Right. So how does the influx of foreign construction domestic workers impact Singapore's economy in the short and long term?
Well, it keeps us going, right? Bottom line is, without their presence, I don't think we are able to fill the labor needs as much, right? Certainly, not to say that Singaporeans shun those jobs. Bottom line is we just don't have enough surplus labor to fill the kind of opportunities that we still have in Singapore. So, in short, they play a very significant role.
Right. Well, I mean, as June 2025, Singapore had 3.66 million citizens, which is a slight increase from 3.64 million citizens a year ago.
0.7%.
Yeah. Now,
any increase is better than a drop. So
right.
We always look at it positively.
Yeah, but I mean, is this a notable increase? What does this reveal about the trajectory? Will it continue to increase ever so slightly, or is there room for it to drop again?
The million-dollar question. I used to think that given our very, very strong, support for marriage and family formation in Singapore, I thought that we could hold above 1 for TFR, right? But unfortunately, we slipped to 0.97 the past 2 years. So, looking forward, I think it will be a challenge. for us to continue to encourage growth in the Singapore citizen sector, right? The segment of our population. And that's why I think government has been quite aggressive, right, in addressing the pressures, that young parents face when we encourage them to grow families. And this continues to be an uphill struggle, and we're not the only ones, right? Elsewhere in the world, Japan, South Korea, China, Taiwan, same. In developed economies, there's so many attractions for young adults. Family formation, especially growing larger families, is but one, of the opportunities that are, shouting out to them.
Right. Well, meanwhile, the number of citizens aged 65 and above rose from 19.9% in 2024 to 20.7%, according to the latest report. Is this rate of aging faster or slower than expected? And how does it compare regionally or even globally?
Because of this statistic, we just had to make a change on our report because we were projected to go into a super aged stage only in 2026, but we have arrived, right? When I saw this report, I texted my colleagues, I said, we have arrived. We are now super aged. Well, elsewhere in the world, the Japanese have reached this status before us and, Korea and so forth. So this is a global trend that we're looking at. Is it bad news? I don't think so. This is something that, we should look at, from an opportunities angle, right? So it means that we must think of ways to capitalize on our extended longevity. So this means that, 65, when you're 65, there's a chance, a very high chance that you will have at least about 20 years. And if you looked after yourself well, then that's like an additional 15 to 20 productive years. So what are we going to do about this, right? That is the challenge for us.
Well, other than that, it looks like fewer Singaporeans are tying the knot and they are having smaller families. It looks like the share of Singaporean women aged between 40 and 49 with just one child rose from 15.9% in 2004 to 22.8% in 2024. With this trajectory, then, what are the main reasons Singaporean families are having fewer children today compared to, 20 years ago?
Well, I think many things have changed with modernization, industrialization, urbanization, right? We used to have children and many, many children because children bring not just intrinsic value to our quality of life, but also, extrinsic practical reasons for having more children, because we look forward to having, at least if you have 10 children, at least one, right, should be filial and take care of you when you grow old, etc., etc. But those norms and expectations have now been replaced, right? Now, when we have children, really, you have children because you love children. And many parents subscribe to the philosophy that, we do our best, we love them, we give them all we can, and then we release them, right, to live their own lives. So given that is the reason why we have children have shifted, because you want to give, the child that you have the best chance at doing well, right, in their lifespan. We believe that we can only afford to do this for a smaller number of children. I think that is primarily one of the reasons, right, why we have small family size. And of course, the other is, the contesting life goals, particularly the contradiction between work and family. If we want to maintain our careers, particularly for women, then, the thought of having larger families is quite daunting, because how do you balance both, right? We knew this was a problem 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We don't have the solution yet. And the statistics are, showing us that perhaps we need to work a little bit harder at this.
Singapore is trying to encourage Singaporeans to have more children, right? We've got the large family scheme that was announced during the budget debate back in February to provide additional financial support of up to $16,000 for each third and subsequent citizen child. But how effective are these financial incentives to be in encouraging larger families? Will this help change the trajectory?
Personally, I feel that it is more a normative support, right? Because the main complaint when we speak with young parents, is why do they limit the number of children they have? And they always say it's expensive, it's difficult. But I think for a more targeted address to this, we have to be very specific. What exactly, is the main problem when we talk about growing larger families? Is it because our homes are too small? In which case, a targeted approach would be to give them, a head start in applying for a larger flat, right? But, if it's something like it's so expensive to raise my child because, tuition, enrichment is so expensive, sending to an overseas university is so expensive. Now, then therein lies the problem, right? I think that it will be very, very difficult for any government to support financially those aspirations. So again, very important considerations. We need to drill deeper to see how we can address these barriers.
Definitely. Some great insights from you. Thank you so much, Pauline, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That was Paulin Straughan, who's a director at the Center for Research on Successful Aging. This has been The Big Story with me, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.